The landslide came from a neighbor's property with some trees from the neighbor's property, and some of those trees ended up on top of the house.
I just had a fantastic conversation with Jamie Gilpin, a friend, fellow entrepreneur, and a leader here in the Asheville business community. We talked about our companies and others here in the Asheville area that were impacted by Hurricane Helene. We traded some great stories and thrown some interests like cycling and motorsports. This is a long-form conversation that I think you'll find interesting and informative.
And there's the Lemons car, by the way, up in that picture up there. It's Boomer Sassman's 24 Hours of Lemons car. This spring is really what's going to inform how we as a business and how the region as a whole is going to be moving forward.
Jamie, thanks for having me.
Dominic, thanks for being here.
I'm excited about having this conversation because I saw come up on LinkedIn you doing the recovery roundtable. Mm-hmm. You're on the board for the Hatch, right?
Yes, I'm on the board, and right after the storm, there was a bunch of activities, an entrepreneurial community, and the Hatch was like, "Oh, what can we do? What can we do?" We, as a nonprofit, were like, "Well, how can we give back? How can we contribute to what's going on?"
Yeah.
So in October, late October, is when members of the board, former members of the board, like George Clacken, were like, "Hey, there's got to be something out. These people are suffering. There needs to be a common place for everybody to go to learn from one another." And it's been a bit of a journey for everybody. What
are some of the things, maybe trends, that you heard from the roundtable? So these are companies that were impacted by the storm here in Asheville and have come together, if not to cry on each other's shoulder, find where resources are, talk about their challenges, try to get some guidance. What were some of the things you heard?
Some of the core things I heard were, what's going on with insurance? What can I expect? And there's a lot of people that are coming together to interpret what insurance policies really say and what they can really get out of it. What the heck's going on with FEMA? When are these grants going to come through? And where are the employees? We had some folks that brick and mortar, retail, restaurants that were in the groups, and there's nobody. There's so many people that left. I heard a number that 10,000 people left the area, a lot of which were retail folks,
which is substantial for a town like this.
That's huge, and when tourists start showing up in spring. The concerning part is how many places are going to be closed, not because they can't open, but because they can't get employees. And it'll be very interesting to see how things come back. I don't have any wise words to, how it should evolve and grow, but, people still need to earn a living.
Yeah.
And inevitably, people will find a way.
Yeah.
And it will look different, but that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
We'll come back stronger.
Yeah.
One way or another.
Well, it's interesting. So we both went through the .com bust, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So somewhat similar. Like this was a big impact economically, physically. I mean, that's a big difference of the .com piece. But where's the funding? Can you stick around and weather it until the next thing, whether it's an entrepreneur to try to get your feet underneath you to launch a new thing, or are there enough workers? Just like everybody flooding into the Bay Area, in the late 90s, like when I did. But when it was time to go, U-Haul changed their policy that there was no one-way trucks going down California because they'd never get them back. All kinds of ripple effects. So, this is a place people want to live. I wouldn't even consider for a second leaving, even though we went through what we did. Yeah. But it's going to be different, right? There will be people who can't weather waiting around until enough. The service industry, for example, people need to make money, so they're going to have to leave if the stores aren't here. Yeah. Then when the companies try to come back and the employees aren't here, they might need. So it's going to yo-yo a little bit.
Yeah. I've said something that might come across as insensitive or unpopular, but I'll reiterate it now and make sure I choose the right words. But there are going to be people that desperately want to stay here that can't, because, to put it in business terms, they don't have the working capital to bridge. But there are going to be, just like in the Bay Area during the dot-com bust, the excess that we've kind of built up here, the excessive people that were just here for the beer and the mountain biking, they're like, oh man, my mountain bike trail's closed. If they ship out, what's going to end up being here are the people that are really committed to Asheville and to Western North Carolina. And not just here I don't want to say exploit, but just to take advantage of the wonderful things.
It was easy pickings.
It was easy pickings. So what we'll have left are the people that are really invested in the community, which is a wonderful thing. And it happened in San Francisco. It was hard going through the dot-com bubble bursting, but at the same time, it was kind of neat to see San Francisco in its raw form. It wasn't the $150,000 fundraise parties that people would throw after they got their round whatever. It was people that were really sticking it out and that were connected to the community, and it'll be the same here.
Yeah,
and that's why we'll come back stronger, is because the people that are really invested are the people that are going to be going the extra mile to make sure that we're that much stronger, that much better, and much more sustainable. It'll be
interesting to see. There'll be opportunity.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot of heartache between now and then.
Yeah.
We're in the throes of cleanup still. So the FEMA, Army Corps of Engineer contractors, subcontractors are all out in the riverways now trying to clean that up. Insurance money.
Yeah.
Waiting to come in. It feels like it's been a year since it happened.
Yeah.
Life is so disrupted.
I don't want to say it, callous is built up over, crazy things happening like the pandemic and Helene or anything, but you know what? It's the things those are the kind of things that make us stronger and more resilient. And while it's been hard to have young kids go through these things, it's also, I'm kind of glad that they've seen it, because they are now more, they have the additional strength to go forward and go through adversity that a lot of others don't have the ability, even adults. I mean, I see kids around here being more resilient than many adults around here.
Yeah.
So it's kind of humorous to watch sometimes.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, seeing my son get to go through it, and I've taken him out. I haven't shielded him at all. I would film, so he'd go out with me. We went and crawled around in the forest where most of the trees are laid down, just so he can see it and digest it, and and understand what happened. So it's kind of everyday life. But let me go back to the storm hit September 27th. I think that was a Friday.
Yep. Friday morning.
Where were you?
Right above here. Actually, the night before, we were getting an idea of what could potentially happen. So the family and I, we battened down the hatches and protected everything as much as we could, and made a decision to spend the night downstairs. We have the apartment over here where the four of us just gathered and slept. And then right before sunrise, I woke up and went upstairs, and that was when the big winds hit. And as you know, we have some pretty big trees around here, so I was sweating a bit. And we had some trees come across our driveway, and over the couple of hours from like 5 o'clock in the morning to 7, 8 o'clock, when all those big winds came through, one of us was upstairs looking out the window as each one of those trees came down. And my daughter actually got a video of a couple of them coming down. The only real damage that we had was a tree came down as we were cleaning it up and chipped the driveway.
Oh, wow.
And that was it.
So we were kind of similar. We had 6 trees come down. They were I think I figured out they're eastern red cedar. Real bushy, but they were about 50 feet tall.
Yeah.
And the way the wind was blowing, so it was blowing east to west, and blew this line of them down on the house. But they were so bushy, they hit this sunroom that stuck out. And all I had was a dip, maybe like that, in my rain gutter. So much biomass, though. I had a family coming down to help cut them up.
But I grew up in Bent Creek. So,
oh, you did?
Yeah.
That's where I've been every day. So since December, before the sun came up, was going up Wesley Branch Road in the service entrance and getting started.
So my dad was a civil engineer with the U.S. Forest Service and actually represented the U.S. Forest Service with the DOT and the state as they were developing the Arboretum. And at one point, the road going up the hill, there was something about the design that wasn't meeting the Fed's specs.
Like the main road coming in, like they have that one stilted side of the road where it's split. I mean, it's really intriguing, you know, in the cliffs and stuff. Rocks coming in.
That was it.
Oh, interesting.
But that was
I spent so much time there.
Yeah. So, and then when I was a kid, that was nothing. That was absolutely nothing. I mean, it was just woods.
When I was talking to the horticulture, the head horticulturalist there, and was talking about all the damage that they've had. And he's like, well, none of it's old growth, because much of that had been
chestnut, American chestnut, that the blight knocked out
like
100 years ago. So it was obliterated.
He would, and and it was logged and what have you.
There's that,
but they still had. I mean, there were some white oak and some other. They were huge. I counted one rings to like 120 or something like that. So there were some old trees. Of course, like many places, they had areas, especially there. Like there's knoll, and that area back in there is a bit of a horseshoe. Where the mountains are. So the wind funneled through there. And then near where the visitor center, like the main buildings are, there's this knoll, and it just pretty much got knocked down.
Really? I haven't been out there since the storm.
And they had, from there you couldn't see the mountains, you couldn't look out. Like it was just forested, right? You had up to 100-foot tall trees out there, and now the canopy is just wide open. Oh, wow. So this crew went through with, of course, chainsaws and chippers and things that were leaning, uprooted, or knocked down, or had been topped. And of course, some of them are amazing, like massive trees just broken off, like 50 foot up. Like this trunk just goes up and it's just torn off. And went through and cut them all up. So it looks like little anthills through the woods because of all the chip piles that had been left. And you went through and just ran what we could through the chipper.
Oh, wow.
And then there are untold, stacks of these logs. So they cut them about, 12, 15 feet long with the skid steer and just stack them up. So it's like Lincoln logs. And they're just everywhere in the forest. So how about your businesses? You're on the board of another business.
Mizar Imaging.
Mizar Imaging.
And
what do they do?
They build microscopy equipment that helps scientists look at small samples down, very, very tiny, without damaging the sample with light. Because you have an organic something, a molecule, that if you hit it with the amount of light that you need to be able to image it with a typical microscope, it will change its nature. And so they've developed a technology to take pictures of live samples without damaging it.
So on finance, back to some of your background.
Yes.
We were in San Francisco around the same time. And I got there in 98.
Okay.
Packed my bags to go out for the opportunity. Right? The internet boom was getting started.
.com boom.
.com boom. Was one of the early employees with a startup out there. So I was there in 98, and then by early 01, I was headed to Asia and then ultimately San Diego.
Okay.
You were with Deloitte.
Yes.
In Charlotte.
Yes.
And then got out to San Francisco in 01.
Yep.
And then you were there for how long? Till
I was there until '05. I was with Deloitte until '04. But yeah, I moved out to the Bay Area, transferred by Deloitte. Because of all the exciting activities going on.
It was going on.
The IPOs left and right, and they needed people. And I had a special, unique skill. I did data analysis work. So I would go into clients and download huge data files and crunch them and do all kinds of statistical analyses. And I did big data work before there was such thing as big data. And I was like one of a handful of people within Deloitte that could do it. So some partners out there caught on to what I was doing. They, hey, we need you. So I landed in mid-May of '01, right as the dot-com bubble burst. And somehow I wasn't one of the many that were moved on.
that was part of my exit.
Yeah. And that, I mean, having so many. I lived, actually, my first year out there, I lived in East Oakland, out by the zoo.
Okay,
and
yeah.
I would take the 580 into the city, across the Bay Bridge and into the city, and that's where I mainly worked and everything. There were some days I would drive in. I usually took BART, but I would drive in, and there would be U-Haul trucks and Hertz-Penske trucks going the opposite way, leaving the Bay Area because everything was imploding. Everybody's jobs and money was disappearing.
So I ended up coming back up from San Diego to the Bay Area. We were in the North Bay Area, so the Richmond Annex. If you remember Wildcat Canyon.
Yes.
We lived in Wildcat Canyon. Anyway, we came back up in '05.
Yeah.
And then by '07, some family health issues on the East Coast. So my wife and I moved back here. We went to Charleston. We were there for about 8 years, and then came here. And so you came here because, well, you grew up here and you knew it.
Yeah.
We came here because Charleston had gotten so busy, and my wife grew up in Vermont. She's like, it's time to get away from the sand and humidity, and go to the mountains. Yeah. And I was like, Vermont's way too cold.
Yes.
Why don't we go for the weekend and check out Asheville? Here it's nice. So we came up and checked it out. It was just amazing. Yeah. And we were like, well, this is a place we could live. Yeah. And so this was 15. And we put our house on the market, sold immediately, came up here, and it's been amazing. Yeah. I think my story of coming here, that it's an amazing place that you can go get outside and in the forest, any direction you want to go. Yeah. There's the cuisine. So this is one thing we didn't want to lose. Go San Francisco, Charleston, cuisine is great, and there's kind of that urban aspect, and we didn't want to lose it. Yeah. So we weren't going to go out in the boonies, but Asheville had all of that, and you could go get lost in the woods at the same time. Yeah. So I talk to a lot of people that have that similar story. Yeah. Right. That come up here, but come with incredible backgrounds from business and kind of all over the world, and come here because it's kind of the end of the rainbow, right? Like, great place to live.
Well, as I tell people, I grew up here, and my wife and I had, we got married, we moved back to the Bay Area, we lived in San Francisco, and never, ever thought that I'd come back here. Never thought that I'd come back. I mean, everybody that had an inkling to move away after high school did. And never thought I'd come back. If all the other things, the beer scene, the food scene, the revitalization of downtown, if none of that had happened, there's no way I would have been able to come back. One of the reasons is, my wife, she's a Bay Area native, and she's a foodie. And, it's world class here. Yeah. And as you know, we're cyclists, and it's world class cycling. And there's just so many amazing things that have happened that I would have never foreseen. That had that not happened, we probably wouldn't have moved back.
So that brings us to cycling. Yeah. So one of your businesses, Outfitter
Bicycle Tours.
Bicycle Tours.
Yep.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So it is actually the company that brought my wife and I together. Back in 2004. I was wanting to go spectate the Tour de France, living in San Francisco, and through some relationships, was connected with this small company called Outfitter Bicycle Tours that was based out of the Bicycle Outfitter, which is a bike shop in Los Altos, so south of Palo Alto, north of Mountain View. And they had tours every year that went and spectated the Tour de France and followed a few stages and did a few things. Fast forwarding, went on the tour, ended up meeting this girl that was there with the tour with her mom, who was from Mountain View. And while she wasn't on the tour, her boss back home was the guy that also owned the tour company, her boss being the owner of the bike shop and the tour company. Came back, and we started a relationship. Followed her to St. Louis, came back after we got married to the Bay Area. And before we had kids, we went over to Europe and followed the Tour de France around, met up with her old boss, and he was looking to sell and retire. And anyway, we ended up with a tour company.
Yeah.
And it's been great.
So every year you put together a tour, and people who are interested in doing what you guys wanted to do. Yep. What do you do?
So what we do is we put together spectator tours for the Tour de France, the Giro d'Italia. We also do a number of self-guided tours in a variety of destinations in France and Italy, and also here in Asheville. So, we do custom private tours where you come to us and say, hey, we want to go to Provence or we want to go to Tuscany for this week in the year, and then we'll curate a private tour experience for you. So come with your friends, come with family. Yep. If it's 2 or 20, we can put together a private tour for you, guided or self-guided. But the Tour de France and Giro d'Italia tours are kind of open to the public, and those are the only ones where we say, hey, anybody can come. Yeah. Otherwise, they're all custom and private tours. Yeah. So we've been doing that since we bought the company in 2010, first season in 2011. And so, this is our 15th year.
Oh, wow.
Doing this, which is hard to believe. But it's been amazing.
Yeah.
The relationships and the experiences that we have, all across Europe, just amazing experience. Beyond the financial, it's just it's so cool to be able to just drop into a small village and know people and expose the kids to all that.
So I was surprised. I'd gotten into cycling, mainly doing like adventure racing. I'd done triathlons and then adventure racing. So I got into cycling and then some long distance stuff, and came here and realized how much of course, I was in Charleston when I got started, and the only altitude you're going to get is going over the Cooper River Bridge, right? So a whole different thing here. Yeah. But it's really starting to take off. Yeah. So over in Old Fort, the group that's doing the trails, they got approval to put trails in Pisgah National Forest. There's all kinds of biking trails around here. Yep. Kitsuma, which goes down over the Continental Divide into Old Fort. Yep. Right now, a bike park is going into Swannanoa at the old Beacon factory where they made blankets. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Yeah, it burnt down, I think, in 2003 or something like that. And a group has purchased that, and they're turning it into a bike park. Cool. They've got a smaller pump track in right now, and then they're building a really big pump track. Yeah. I guess I don't know if the Riveter's opening again, but it might take over the mantle for the Riveter if they don't get open again. Yeah. But and then road cycling, quite the place for bike riding.
It's world-class riding,
as well as for motorsports. Yeah. So the reason we're sitting in front of a car right now, you have a passion for motorsports. Yep. I can't remember which came first. I think over beers, you had mentioned something about 24 Hour of Lemons, and I was just enamored because I tried to give it a go years ago. So I want to hear about that. Yeah. But then we also went to the Asheville track. Yes. Or is it Asheville Track Experience?
The track at Asheville.
Track at Asheville. Yeah. Let's talk about that right now. Yeah. And I'm going to cut in some footage that I took when I was down at Asheville, or Track at Asheville. Yeah. They got hit by the flood. They're down in Biltmore Village, and they're kind of at the intersection of where Sweeten Creek, but more the Swannanoa River had come up. Yeah. And you know the owner there.
Yeah, Joel Bergstein is he's become a business friend, and what he did and what he created there was amazing over a short amount of time. I mean, I think the initial plan was to open the track at Asheville right around the time that the pandemic hit, and he opened it not too long after, and using all the precautions and everything, he actually was able to get it open. I started going there at the beginning of 22, I think. Joy got me a gift certificate to go check it out.
Okay, so you had already been going when me and Chris joined you for one of those.
Only a little bit before. It was the Rookie League.
The Rookie League,
yeah. So
I think I was dead last in the Rookie League.
And it was. I never done sim racing before. So, they had 12 rigs in there of really good equipment, really good sim equipment.
I was blown away.
Yeah.
Quite the experience.
Yeah. So you guys came and did it and had your laughs and moved on. I was, hooked. But surrounding all that tech and competition was the community that Joel created. And yeah, they were obliterated in Helene. I don't think I'm going to be overstepping what Joel has said, but he has decided over the course of the past several months that he's not going to reopen. But and what's so amazing is the community is still very active on Discord, and there's some core people that are just posting every single day, and people are getting together like after the storm. People had parties to watch Formula One races at their homes.
Yeah.
One of which was here. We watched the Brazilian Grand Prix here.
So it's amazing what that technology allows. Like you say, you can put the car into the wall, right, and reset and keep going, but you get a fairly realistic experience.
And I tell people about it. And it's like, it's not a game. It's not like a video game where you're like collecting coins and trying to do ridiculous stuff. The tire wear is
that's what I was going to say. That's what I didn't realize. I don't know what you call it. The programming, I guess. I keep wanting to say algorithm, but the programming that warming the tires up, wearing the tires out. If you're driving poorly like I was,
and you cook the tires,
and skidding into all the corners because I wasn't braking soon enough, I wore the tires out. Yeah. Virtual tires out, virtual traction out before I got to the end, and the car was handling horribly.
Yeah.
But so that makes racing and driving and the thrill of that accessible to somebody that can just go to the sim, but enter the real thing.
The real thing.
So a Miata is a good platform to get started with and modify, and there's a big enough community around it.
Oh yeah.
Why the Miata? Was this a 1990?
05. It's 2005, and it's for sale if anybody is interested. I'll explain why. But it is the perfect platform for somebody that wants to have something to wrench on that's approachable. The parts aren't super expensive. It's easy to work on for the most part. If you have some skills, you can do a lot of things in your garage. And Chris Bueller and I put in that roll bar.
Let's take a look at it.
Oh, and there's the Lemons car, by the way, up in that picture up there. It's Boomer Sassman's 24 Hours of Lemons car, 87 BMW 325i convertible that's been massaged a bit.
That looks like it's pouring down rain.
Yeah, that's at Road Atlanta.
And is there a roof on it?
Well, okay, so it was a convertible that has a roll cage in it, and we got an oil pan and slapped it on the top, and using zip system taped it down. And it's effective. It works. It doesn't flap around. It's robust, and it works.
So different than what you're doing with this car. Uh-huh. If I recall, 24-hour Lemons, you can't spend more than $500 on the car outside of safety equipment or something like that?
Consumables. So if, like tires, brakes, brake rotors, you can spend what you want, but the core car and a lot of the core modifications can't cost more than $500. So you got, like at Road Atlanta, in the rain, over 100 cars on the track, 100 crap wagons going around in a circle. But, like for that BMW, it's a beautiful handling platform. So it's fun. But the roll cage that's in it is well overbuilt.
Yeah.
We're wearing full Nomex race suits. Of course, the latest helmets with Hans devices. The full the 5-point harness and everything. So it's racing.
Yeah.
But
talk about community. That's got to be
That's a huge community. So there's 5 of us that drive that car, and we just swap out throughout the day. And, so it's 24 hours of lemons, but it's really 8 hours on Saturday, 8 hours on Sunday.
Yeah.
And so over 24, over actually more than 24 hours, you're spending a ton of time on the track. As long as your car survives, and that's a solid car that hasn't let us down too terribly much, you're spending a lot of time at speed.
Yeah.
And
are you doing it again this year?
Yeah, at the end of April, we have a race in, last weekend of April at Carolina Motorsports Park.
Yeah.
And that'll be the 3rd time we go there. And then we just did another Road Atlanta race in December.
Oh, cool.
A little bit in the rain, too.
Let's take a look at this.
Yeah. So, this was a pandemic purchase. Bought this from a guy up in Weaverville, that it was pretty much bone stock, except for there was a muffler that was kind of a performance muffler. And the intention was to buy it and just kind of do all the fun stuff to it. It has a suspension kit on it with Coney adjustables, lowering springs, fat sway bars.
I think when I had come over, cracked some beers, doing something around with the springs, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we were switching out the struts in the front and the springs and the shocks in the back. Chris Bueller and I installed this roll bar, and then let's see here. I installed, just like creature comfort stuff. The stereo on it's a touch screen with Android Auto and Apple CarPlay.
You put the seats in, right?
Yeah, I put those seats in. The steering wheel, which is nice and fat and actually a smaller diameter than stock. And then I put a full exhaust system on it, headers, mid-pipe.
So what's a good purpose for this car? What would you drive?
This is a great weekend car, and then I've done one track day with it, and it was just amazing. This is the kind of car that you can just beat on.
Have you done Tail of the Dragon?
Yeah, actually Jeff Kaplan and I, when he had a Miata, we went up and did, every August, there's a Miatas at the Gap event where hundreds of Miatas converge at Lake Fontana.
Yeah.
And we did the Tail of the Dragon, him and his white Miata, and me and this one. It was just so much fun.
So somebody interested in this car.
Yeah.
What's left for them to do? What can they do?
If they wanted to do track days, really maybe a harness, 5-point harness.
Yeah.
And then they need tires for these wheels, the track day tires, and really that's it.
Ready to go.
It's
of course you can. I'm sure it's a slippery slope. You can always keep.
There's always more. The one thing that I was thinking about doing to this, if I did decide to upgrade, was I was going to put a supercharger on it, which would have taken it from like 140 horsepower up to 200, low 200s.
Yeah. Which
would have made this a bit more of a rocket ship. But I decided that I needed a 4-seat car for the whole family. And I'm selling this. So.
All right.
Anyway.
All right, so on to Proxy.
Yeah.
Your other company.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about it.
Sure. We take care of luxury second homes. So right now we're right at 90 homes in the area, everywhere from out from Lake Toxaway into Henderson County, but mostly in Buncombe County. We have most of our homes are in Buncombe County, and pushing 40 in Walnut Cove, the Cliffs community, and then a bunch just Town Mountain over here, Reynolds Mountain, just kind of dotted all over the place. So you see the big homes on top of the hills.
Yeah.
A lot of them are second homes that need to be taken care of. So we have a team of folks, home managers, that go around and check on the homes every week, schedule the maintenance, report back to the homeowners, do projects on the homes, roof replacements, deck replacements, you name it, we can do it.
So I can only imagine the flood of phone calls as Helene comes barreling up to the area.
Yeah.
What was that like when the storm hit? Managing a business that is taking care of all those homes for many people probably aren't here.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, we don't take on homes unless they're empty most of the time.
Okay.
So most of our homes were empty.
Yeah.
We had a few homeowners in, and the mantra that we gave them was, if you can get out, go. After the storm hit, it was chaos around here. So if you're in town, figure out a way to get out, and we'll take care of everything. Just make sure the house is buttoned up, and then but yeah, we had all kinds of phone calls coming in, and I will say that 95% of them were like, first, are you okay? Is the proxy team okay? Is everything all right?
Oh, that's great.
And so that was heartwarming. There was others that were like, what's going on with my house? And others were like, that's a pile of sticks and concrete. Make sure you're okay first. And so it was really heartwarming. Yeah. And but it was chaos. Immediately we were down one guy who lives out in Fairview, and his community right near Garrens Creek was devastated, and he was 100% rightfully focused on his community. Yep. And he dove into that. So we were down somebody, but we got out there. I mean, it was amazing. The team came together, and just as we could safely go check on homes, we did it. Yeah. And
I imagine a lot of those houses, as you described, you kind of look up in those, see them up on, those were tough roads to get up. Yeah. It took, I imagine you would have to go back and keep checking to see when those roads had gotten cleared.
Yeah. There's a home on Town Mountain that wonderful homeowners, but I took on some of the homes that this guy would normally have taken care of that was out, and that was one of them. And to get there, it's kind of behind Grove Park Inn, and there were trees down just all over the place. And it took at least a week for me to be able to get up there. Wow. But when I finally got up there, and I kind of knew what was coming at me because they had a neighbor check on the house, there was a landslide on it. And whole landslide came down and just, it didn't take out the house. Matter of fact, the house is still standing.
Didn't push it off the foundation.
Didn't push it off the foundation. And it's a interesting placement of a house anyway, but whoever built it right. But they still have a landslide in front of the house. And we initially were like, well, how can we get this thing moved? But then it was like, whoa, let's analyze this carefully. We don't want to start doing stuff that's end up going to be damaging things. But there was a tree on the roof. Actually, the landslide came from a neighbor's property with some trees from the neighbor's property, and some of those trees ended up on top of the house. So we got the trees off the house. We tarped the roof. We sealed the house, and HVAC worked. Everything works in the house as soon as the power and internet came back on. Yeah, everything was fine, and the homeowners actually stayed in the house. But they have a huge mound of a landslide right up in front of the house, next to the garage and the front door. Yeah, and it's just the power that house took was amazing. And wow, anyway, they're working on repairing.
Have any of your clients expressed reservations about keeping a house here?
Not directly. We had a couple of homes go on the market, 2 out of 90. Not much. That's a
Regular, normal
kind of
turnover.
thing. This spring is really what's going to, just like all other businesses in the area, it's really what's going to kind of inform how we as a business and how the region as a whole is going to be moving forward.
Yeah, so my company Wallworks, we were making the transition. We were in retail, and we were making a heavy turn to e-commerce, and we were doing e-commerce.
Yeah.
But we did a Kickstarter to launch our new products, and that was earlier in the year. So we were in the process of starting to roll them out through all the e-commerce channels, and kind of like your team member, when the storm hit, there was so much happening in the community. Just kind of set it down, and just pulled the chainsaw and the shovel out, kept after that for a solid month and a half after the storm, and it had a big marketing impact for us.
Yeah, and it's still lasting. I applied for a grant for the tour company.
Likewise.
But Proxy, we're doing well. Like I said, continuing to grow, getting new clients. People are still buying homes. But it's really going to be this spring where we really see how people respond. Overall, just kind of the feeling and the love we've been getting from our client homeowners has been very positive. But we'll see when it comes down to it. It's like, well, do we really want to go? It's really looking devastated up there. Do we really want to keep the home up there? I hope so, and not just from a business perspective, but from a personal perspective.
Yeah,
it will continue being a beautiful, lovely place to come to.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you spending the time, and I'd like to check in with you in the future.
Absolutely.
Get insight into what is replacing the Miata.
Oh.
See how the tour
Yeah.
tour company is coming along.
Yep.
And as well as Proxy.
Awesome.
Great. Thanks Jamie.
Tom.
Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers.